Dan Wowacker Coal Cracker Bushcraft. Today what I wanted to do was a short video on how to render birch oil from birch bark. And it's a pretty easy, straightforward process. It takes a little bit of time, but the end results are definitely well worth it. And we're going to talk about some of the benefits of birch oil once we get further in this video, once we get our oil rendered out. So what do we need to do for this process? So basically I'm just going to take my fire lay that I have here, my fire pit, and I dug down a little bit. And you're going to need two containers. I have a smaller one and a larger one. And the larger one, I just punched a hole right in this lid. Okay, and this is actually going to face down. So as this heats and the oil starts to render out, it'll come through and drip into this smaller container underneath. Okay, so initially what we want to do is take our big container, and we're going to take some birch bark. And we're just going to start to fill this container. The more full we can get this, the better. Okay, so I have some scrap pieces in here. I'm just going to jam in and get that good and full. And put my lid on. Okay. So now that's all filled up. There's no other holes in this container other than right on this lid, and that's going to actually face down. So now I'm going to take my small container and put this down in the ground, and we need to dig a big enough hole that once we put the small container, like I'm going to show here shortly, and the large container on, okay, we want the dirt covering even some of this large container, because all we want to do is heat this, and we want that bottom section when that oil drips through to stay somewhat cool. We don't want that to get hot. It'll turn it into tar rather than oil. So we want to bury this about this far down into the ground, and then we're going to build our fire around that. Okay, so my small container, you want to place that real firmly down inside our hole here. We don't want this to move, because ultimately after our fire is done, we're going to have to remove this top container and not contaminate our oil with anything. So I'll just put my hand on here and start to fill in around the bottom and pack this in. Okay, now once I get that packed in like that, I'm going to take my birch bark and I'm going to actually place this on top. Keep some pressure on the top of this lid and start to fill in all around this. Okay, and the reason we're keeping pressure on this lid is we don't want any dirt to get down inside that small container. Press that in just like that. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like once we have it all set up. So now that our container with our birch bark and our catch container is all set, and I actually packed a little bit of extra dirt around this. So I'm about a third of the way up this container. I'm going to start a fire. Now, if you already have a good fire going, you can drag all your coals and wrap it around. I don't have a fire going because I just got out here this morning. So I'm going to just start my fire here, and as that fire burns and I start to get good hot coals, I'm going to keep wrapping it around here and build a good fire here. But initially, rather than playing around too much with this, I'm just going to light my fire off to the side. That way I don't take any chances of messing my container up or knocking it over. So I have a little bit of fat wood here to start this fire. Some dried ferns just throw in there to let these start to catch. Remember, when we're building a fire, not to get off the topic of birch oil, but we always want to wait until our current fuel source is at least a fist above. Now, of course, this ferns are going to light, but that pine won't take too long to ignite, and I can start to get some more material on there. Okay guys, so we're going to let this start to burn and get good and hot, and then I'll get a little bit of footage of me pulling this over onto the container itself, and then we're going to just let it go and keep it cooking. Pardon the smoke. We've got super easy stuff. We have the fire built all the way around, and you can see the birches in there just rendering down into an oil. So I'm going to let this cook probably for another hour and let the fire die down and just let it get cold, and then we'll pull it apart and see what we got left. Okay, so I let the fire die down. You can see there's just hot embers right here all around it now. So I'm going to just let that cool until I can manage it and there's nothing hot left there, because I'm actually going to dig out our catch container. So let this go for a while and be right back with you. Okay, so the fire died down and it's pretty cool. There's a little bit of heat left, but it's not too bad. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to remove all our material from around this top container. And we actually, once we start to do this, we want to actually get down below the lip of our second container, which I'm going to show you what I mean by that, because again, we don't want all the dirt and if there's any kind of ash or anything to fall in to our container here that we collected our birch oil in. So we're just going to dig that out, keep pressure on our big container, start getting down there. Just make sure we're working all the way around. Okay, so now we're just going to take this top one off, and what we have here is our birch oil. Okay, so I'm going to put this off to the side for right now. So there's a lot of uses for the birch oil that we actually rendered down. Just off the top of my head, medicinally, you can use it as an antiseptic. So if you would have any kind of cuts or scrapes or abrasions, you can work that in and it would work as an antiseptic. You can also use birch oil to rub on yourself if you have any kind of muscle aches or tendonitis, anything like that, as a topical type ointment. Now, I have done some research as far as ingesting it. Me personally, I would never do that, so I'm not even going to go any further with that. I would use it only as a topical antiseptic or muscle rub. But it also is a great resource for our wood on our axes, our knives, and a leather dressing. You can use it on all of that. So as you can see, I showed in the prior segment here, you know, we rendered our oil down. I'm just going to put a little bit on this rag. Okay, and then you could just work that right into your wood. Throw a little bit more on there. And just work that real good in, and that's going to give a good protectant and seal on your wood, on your axes, knives. Same with your leather. You know, you could take this oil, work it right into your sheets, help condition your leather. So this is a great resource, this birch oil, especially in the eastern woodlands. If you're in a longer term scenario, you might run out of, maybe you had some linseed oil or something like that for your axes, or any kind of leather dressings, you can use this. Okay, so that's another thing you can do. The leftover remnants of what's left of our birch material, move my oil off to the side. Pop this open. As you can see, it's just a charred type of ash. Okay, you get a big chunk out. There's really nothing left to it. Okay, so that means we cooked out all the essential oils that we can get out of this. So you can just discard of that, and you really don't have to do too much. You can keep that container for future uses. Just clean out the hole between uses if making more oil. This was Dan Wowak with Cold Cracker Bushcraft. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll keep the videos coming. Thanks, guys.